Diddy's going to be in jail for the rest of his life. I think he's probably going to get.
Think he's innocent though?
I don't know. I don't even think it matters. I mean, it's a lot of it is.
But then it's just another Epstein. It's in Maxwell, where somebody gets indicted and nobody else indicted for to
right to no one. Right. What is the next crazy thing that's going to explode in the news? Is Bill Clinton's going to have an OnlyFans? Like, what is going to happen? What is the next thing that's going to make us all go, what the going on?
It's coming. You know,
how many guys were on video saying, "Ain't no party like a Diddy party"? How many people like openly talked about being there?
LeBron?
Yeah. How about Ashton Kutcher? All these people. Like, you guys all went. You didn't see nothing? You didn't see nothing?
50 months. That's the number that came down when Sean Diddy Combs stood in a New York federal courtroom and was formally sentenced, bringing a years-long legal saga into its next chapter. 4 years and 2 months in prison, 5 years of supervised release to follow once he's out, and a $500,000 fine on top of it. Here's exactly how the case got to this point, what he's actually facing right now, and where things currently stand with his ongoing appeal. To understand the sentence, you first have to understand the verdict that came before it, because this case didn't play out the way a lot of people initially expected. A jury convicted Combs on charges related to transporting people across state lines for what prosecutors described as freak-offs. The term Combs himself reportedly used for these events, which involved former girlfriends and male escorts. But here's the part that made headlines at the time. The jury acquitted him on the most serious charges he faced, including the sweeping racketeering conspiracy allegations that had been central to the government's original case. That distinction between what he was convicted of and what he was acquitted of isn't just a technical footnote. It's now at the center of his entire appeal, so keep it in mind as we go. When sentencing day arrived, Combs addressed the court directly for the first time since his arrest. He pleaded with the judge for mercy, apologized to his victims by name, and described his own actions as disgusting, shameful, and sick. His 6 adult children were also present in the courtroom that day. Several of them spoke, many visibly emotional, asking the judge to give their father a second chance and describing him as a changed man since everything began. Before we get further into the legal proceedings, it's worth laying out what actually came out during the trial itself, specifically the testimony from Cassie Ventura, his former longtime girlfriend, because her account became one of the most significant parts of the entire case. Cassie testified in detail about the nature of her relationship with Combs over the years they were together. She described psychological control that extended into nearly every part of her daily life, not just the events themselves. According to her testimony, he gave her constant tasks and a running list of things to do, so he always knew where she was and what she was doing at any given moment. If he couldn't reach her, she said, he would text incessantly until someone physically went to check on her. She testified that he controlled her appearance down to small details, how she wore her hair, how she dressed, even what color her nails were, particularly around the events she referred to as freak-offs. She also spoke at length about her fear of blackmail. Many of these events were recorded, and she testified that one of her biggest fears was that the footage could end up circulating online if she ever did something that upset him. She described one incident in particular, a hotel altercation that was captured on surveillance video and later became public, showing physical violence directed at her. She said that after her very first freak-off, she felt dirty and didn't want to continue participating, but described an ongoing pattern of physical threats that followed whenever she tried to push back or say no. She testified that if she made what he considered the wrong face, the next thing she knew, she'd be hit. Other testimony from male escorts who had been involved in these events reportedly corroborated parts of her account during the trial. Throughout her time on the stand, she appeared composed, visibly pregnant, and did not make eye contact with Combs while testifying. That testimony, combined with corroborating evidence presented over the course of the trial, formed the backbone of the case that ultimately led to his conviction on the transportation charges. Even as the same jury declined to convict him on the broader racketeering and conspiracy allegations prosecutors had originally built the case around. Now, back to what happened after the verdict came down and before sentencing, and everything that's unfolded since. Combs was initially held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, a facility that has drawn significant scrutiny over the years for overcrowding and difficult, often chaotic conditions. During his time there, he was reportedly the target of an attack while in custody, before he was eventually transferred to FCI Fort Dix, a different federal facility, where he has remained since sentencing. Since arriving at Fort Dix, there have been reports that Combs has been working in the prison's laundry unit and has completed a rehabilitation program as part of his time there. His legal team, along with his mother, Janice Combs, have continued to be publicly active on his behalf, pushing forward both his appeal and broader efforts to present him as someone actively working toward rehabilitation during his incarceration. That brings us to the appeal, which is by far the most significant ongoing legal development in this case right now. Combs's attorneys have gone before a panel of federal appellate judges arguing that he should be released, making the case that the judge who originally sentenced him improperly relied on what's legally known as acquitted conduct. In plain terms, that means factoring in behavior connected to the charges the jury actually found him not guilty of, specifically the more serious racketeering and conspiracy allegations, when determining how long his overall sentence should be. His legal team has argued in court filings that this evidence was, in their words, totally separate from what he was actually convicted of, and that using it to help shape the length of his sentence wasn't appropriate under the law. Here's what makes that argument legally significant, and why it's drawing attention well beyond just this one case. Until relatively recently, federal judges were in fact permitted to consider acquitted conduct during sentencing. That's been a long-standing and genuinely controversial practice in federal courts for years, and it's exactly the practice Combs's defense is now directly challenging on appeal. As of the most recent reporting, it remains unclear when the appellate panel will actually issue its ruling. What is clear is that his legal team wants a decision handed down as quickly as possible, because under his current sentence as it stands, Combs is set to be released from prison around April of 2028. If the appeal ultimately succeeds, that release timeline could change significantly, potentially moving up considerably. If it doesn't succeed, he'll continue serving out the sentence exactly as originally handed down, with his projected release date remaining right where it currently is. So, where does everything actually stand right now? Sean Combs is currently incarcerated at FCI Fort Dix, serving a sentence connected specifically to convictions on transportation-related offenses tied to the freak-off allegations detailed extensively in Cassie Ventura's testimony and corroborated by other witnesses during the trial. He was acquitted of the more serious racketeering and conspiracy charges that had originally formed the core of the case against him. He's expressed remorse in open court. His family has publicly supported him throughout, and prison officials, along with his legal team, have pointed to his participation in work and rehabilitation programs as evidence of behavior change during his time incarcerated so far. At the same time, his legal team is actively fighting to shorten that sentence through the appeals process, specifically targeting the way acquitted conduct was factored into his original punishment. That appeal remains pending, and no ruling has been issued as of the most recent reporting on the case. This case has become one of the more closely watched examples in recent years of how federal sentencing actually works when a defendant is convicted on some charges but acquitted on others in the same trial, and how much discretion judges have historically had operating in that particular gray area. Whatever the appellate panel ultimately decides here is likely to have implications that extend well beyond just this one case, given how directly it challenges a sentencing practice that's been fairly standard in federal courts for a long time now. For now, the facts on the ground are straightforward, even if the underlying legal questions clearly aren't. Combs is serving a sentence of 50 months, is expected to be released around April 2028, barring any change resulting from the appeal, and remains housed at FCI Fort Dix, while his attorneys continue pushing to get that sentence reduced or overturned on the specific legal argument that acquitted conduct shouldn't have factored into how much time he was ultimately given. We'll continue following this story closely as the appeal moves forward, and we'll update you as soon as there's an actual ruling from the panel. What are your thoughts on how federal sentencing handles acquitted conduct in cases like this one? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next update as this case continues to develop.